morning, my fantasticos. It's Lynda Mullaly Hunt, author of Fish in a Tree, and I'm here for the last installment of Global Read Aloud. Before I begin, however, before I read the last chapter and answer some questions, I would just like to thank all of you. I am so honored that so many of you have chosen to read Fish in a Tree as a class. I am floored, absolutely floored by all the things that I've seen online that you guys are doing. I mean, games and art projects and, incredible writing pieces, and you're Skyping with other kids around the world, and it's just very, very cool. So I think we should all pause right now to give Pernille Rip, founder of Global Read Aloud, a round of applause. See, I'll wait for you to clap. Because without her, none of this would be happening. So I'm going to jump in, read the last chapter, and then we'll get to questions. Chapter 51. See, you see how I set up the title of this chapter? If you say the letters encourage and add genius at the end, it makes a sentence. C-O-U-R-A, genius. So that title is both one word and, two words and a sentence. C-O-U-R-A, genius. If you ever want to remember how to spell courage, remember you just say that sentence in your head. All right, chapter 51. C-O-U-R-A, genius. I asked Mr. Daniels if I can renew my book at the library, and he smiles like I gave him a cake. Sure, he says. Then he hands me an envelope. Since you're heading that way, will you give this to Mrs. Silver for me? Sure. You have to hand it to her, though, and you have to wait until she opens it and writes a response, and then return it to me. Okay? I nod, thinking back to the days when a visit to the office meant trouble. I renew my book and then head to the office. Mrs. Silver is there when I walk in. She smiles. Hey there, Allie. I hold out the envelope, and even before I start talking, I guess I want her to know right away that I'm not in trouble. I have a message from Mr. Daniels. She holds up a finger, telling me to wait 1 minute while she speaks with her daughter and picks up the phone. I mean to listen in on their conversation, but something else catches my attention. The poster with the two hands reaching out for one another, the one I was asked to read, but couldn't. I walk over and stand in front of it. I stare at the outstretched fingers. Then I take a deep breath and look at the letters. I step right up to the wall, and just like Mr. Daniels taught me, use the envelope in my hand as a marker under the first line. I whisper, some things? Mrs. Silver comes and stands behind me. She puts her hands on my shoulders, and I stop reading. No, Allie, she says, keep going. I turn my head to look up at her. Can you just read it to me, so I can hear it all at once? Mrs. Silver reads, sometimes the bravest thing you can do is ask for help. C. Connors. Allie, she says, and I turn. Her voice cracks. I want you to know how sorry I am about the bumpy road we had for a while. I'm proud of all the strides you're making, all the hard work you're doing. We should have picked up on your learning differences before, but you were just so bright, and, I hope you'll give me another chance to help. I nod, looking over at that poster, and think how I should have asked for help, but at the time, it took more bravery than I have, I guess. Hey, she says, didn't you have a letter for me? Yeah, Mr. Daniels said you're supposed to read it before I leave. She opens the envelope and reads as she walks to her desk. Then she laughs and turns to me. Did he tell you what this says? I shake my head. It says, the student delivering this note is our student of the month for hard work and a good attitude. Me, I ask, are you sure this isn't a mistake? She laughs. My brother Travis will never believe this, I tell her. But in my heart, I know he will. He'll be happy for me and muss at my hair and say, good going, Al. She writes a note for Mr. Daniels and hands it to me. I leave the office and I'm told right away to stop running by a teacher, so I do. But it's so hard not to run and jump and yell. Mr. Daniels smiles at me as soon as I turn the corner into the room, and I half jump, half run over to his desk. So you got the message, he asks? I nod. With a hand on my shoulder, he says, "Attention, Fantasticos! I would like to announce that our student of the month is our own Allie Nickerson." Oliver slaps his desk while others applaud, even Jessica. Shay says something I can't hear exactly, but I do hear Aunt Jessica answer her. "Stop it, Shay." Albert and Keisha come over, Albert with a high five and Keisha with a hug. "Wow, are you going to talk to us little people when you win your next award?" "If you bake for me," I joke. "Wait," Albert says. "Will you bake for me if I win something?" Keisha and I laugh while Albert says, "No, I'm serious." Keisha pats him on the shoulder. "Yes, Albert, I'll bake something for you." We begin collecting our things to go home. Travis is picking me up because I have to bring my project home. I get my stuff and head down to the gym to wait. Soon Travis walks in, still wearing his clothes from the garage. The sun from outside is behind him, like he's walking out of a ball of light, and all of a sudden, I feel like I'm going to cry. It makes sense. Everything does. Travis is smart, in the same ways that I am. I run up to him, put my project down on the floor, and throw my arms around him. Pretty happy to avoid the school bus, he laughs. "I'm just really happy to see you, that's all." And I hug him one more time, but tighter. His face questions me. "Wait a second," I say. "I'll be right back." And I turn and run before he can answer. I run because I just have to. This can't wait until tomorrow. I sprint down the hallway, ignoring someone far behind me, telling me to slow down. I approach my classroom, grab the door frame, and swing into the room, out of breath. Mr. Daniels looks up from his work, surprised. "Allie?" I step up to the side of his desk. I reach into my pocket and pull out the worn piece of paper that says possible. "You're still carrying that?" he asks, and smiles big. "Please, Mr. Daniels," I tell him. "You have to help. I'll do anything." He stands. "What's wrong, Allie?" "Please help my brother." I take a step forward. He needs to learn to read too. I think of the poster in Mrs. Silver's office, Mr. Daniels' hand reaching for mine, and mine reaching for Travis. "Of course, Allie. I'm happy to help. Your brother's picking you up today, right?" I nod, feeling so grateful for Mr. Daniels. I wonder if he knows that I came into 6th grade wondering what would ever become of me, and now I have dreams I know I'll chase down. I'll set the world on fire someday, and come back here and tell him so. "Okay," he says, "you go ahead. I'll be down in a minute to talk to him about what we can do." I run from the room, but slow down, thinking, aware of every step. Eventually, I'm back at the gym, back to my big brother who has stood by me and helped me always, who's believed in me no matter what I've said. Travis is standing there with his hands in his pockets, looking up at the light streaming through the windows across the top of the gym. I watch him for a while. Finally, he sees me and smiles. I hand him the tattered piece of paper that says possible. "Here," I say. "This belongs to you now." He looks confused. "For me?" Mr. Daniels isn't far behind me. He shakes Travis's hand. "Hello there, Travis. I've heard a lot about you." He looks down at me. "Quite a little sister you have here." Travis does that half smile. "Yeah, she is." "So," Mr. Daniels says, "apparently, Allie thinks we should talk." "Okay," he says, brushing his chin with his knuckles. Mr. Daniels explains to him what we do after school and invites him to join us. I look up. Travis swallows hard and nods. I knew Travis would be brave enough to say yes. A mind movie lights up in my head, of our last name written in neon lights in the window of Travis's new place. And there's another mind movie, too, of me being happy, reading and making my art, and finding a special Allie place shape in the world. But these mind movies won't go into my sketchbook of impossible things, because I know they will actually happen. I lean my back against my big brother and feel his hands on my shoulders. Their voices seem to fade as I look up at that light streaming through the windows. Things are going to be different. It's like birds can swim and fish can fly. Impossible to possible. So that's the last chapter of Fish in a Tree. And we see that Allie has gotten help, and now Travis has gotten help. And I truly believe in my heart and soul, and in the mind movies that I see of scenes that are not in the book, that Travis will open up that shop one day, and their last name will be in lights, Nickerson. So there are some questions here that I'll jump in and get to. All right, so a couple of small things. A lot of you have asked me for the answer to the code, and here's my answer. Are you ready? I'm not going to tell you what the answer is. I'm not going to tell you what the answer is. And, you know, like the whole point of putting that code in there is for other people to get a sense of how hard it is or how long it takes, you know, to read if you have dyslexia. Now, figuring out that code is totally different than dyslexia, but it will give you a sense of how long it takes or how hard it can be. And so I'm not going to tell you. I will tell you, as it says in the book, that each letter stands for another letter. So let's say, like, G stands for H, because H comes after G. And then that would mean that S stands for T, because T comes after S. There's some sort of pattern like that, but I'm not going to tell you what it is. You're going to have to figure it out. Could be one letter, could be two letters. There's some sort of pattern there. But it does work for the same number of letter difference all through the alphabet. So let's see. I have actually seen pictures from schools around the country where people have T-shirts that say Flint and magnesium, and oh my gosh, I just love those. Thank you so much. How creative and how cool that is. I just like sit in my office all alone and just crack up when I see those pictures. So thank you for those of you who sent those. Let's see. Something I wasn't asked about, but I thought I'd throw in there is the chapter about my brother's questions. Made me really sad. Of all the chapters in the book, that's the one that really made me sad. I didn't cry while writing it because that's a rarity, but I kept having to swallow. And it's because, you know, I just had this vibrant mind movie of my bedroom when I was about 11 years old and my real life brother standing in that doorway going like this. He, you know, his hair would come over his, you know, his forehead long, and when he was a kid, he'd go like that to knock it out of his eyes while he was talking to me. And that was just such a vibrant movie in my head. But the other thing is that when I'm writing, I drop into the characters that are speaking, which sounds a little weird, but it's true. And the thing is I could feel how utterly hopeless Travis felt. I knew how much he was really struggling and how much he was really hurting and how he felt like there was no answer for him. And so I'd say of all the chapters, that was the one that I got emotional about. I told you guys I got a little emotional about the ant murderer, but that was a totally different thing. That was like me being a sappy mom thinking about my son when he was little. So it was a very different kind of situation. The Flying Tigers chapter, actually I wrote that chapter because of that fact. Because in World War II there were airplanes called the Flying Tigers. Here's a picture of the real Flying Tigers. And you could see, like, the nose of the airplane is painted to look like, doesn't look like a tiger. It might be a tiger shark, but I think the whole idea was just to look scary. And then it's hard to see, but the real Flying Tigers have a flying tiger on the back of the plane here. And then, as I had said in the book, in World War II, they actually didn't have that many of these planes. So they would change the numbers on the planes in between missions to give the enemy the idea that there were a lot more planes than there really were. I thought that fact was so cool and so clever of them to do that, that I wrote that chapter because of that fact. I wanted Albert to give us that fact, and so that's where that whole chapter began. Famous people with dyslexia chapter, you guys have gotten to that, and that chapter was a lot of fun to write, and it's a really amazingly stunning list of, famous people that have had dyslexia. I mean, on that list, we have Steve Jobs and Bill Gates, inventors of the Apple computer and the PC. I mean, that's really phenomenal. I mean, I am sitting here talking to you on an Apple computer. Without Steve Jobs, I probably wouldn't be able to do that and drop into your classroom this way. You saw that Albert Einstein was on there. And Albert Einstein is a big part of the book. As you know, I have a stuffed Albert Einstein in my office. You wave. What's amazing about this is not only could Albert Einstein not read when he was young, but he couldn't tie his shoes when he was your age. He couldn't memorize the months of the calendar. But yet he solves some of the most intricate or complicated science questions that the world has ever, that the human race has ever seen. I mean, talk about being, learning differently, but what a genius. I mean, what a genius. So we must remember that, some of us are good at reading, some of us are good at art, some of us are good at soccer, some of us are really good with people, like your teachers. I bet your teachers are good with people and a lot of other things. So, we all have to appreciate our differences, I think. And see them as positives. I wouldn't want to hang around with people who are just like me all the time. I actually like to really hang around people who are different than me, who have different opinions than me and different lifestyles than me. I find it more interesting than hanging around people who are just like me. So I would encourage you to seek those people out. All right. So the pile of friendship bracelets at the end. All right. I have gotten so many questions about Shay. I think Shay is the character that you guys love to dislike. And, that's fine. We've seen a little reason why Shay acts the way she does with her mother's behavior, although that is not an excuse to be mean to other people. But there was another video where I asked you guys to raise your hand. So who thinks that Shay will come around and be a friend at the end of the book? And most of you, I believe, out there believe that Shay would turn around and become Allie's friend. So let's stop and take another poll. Raise your hand if you were surprised that I did not have her come around and be a friend to everybody. I can't actually see you, but you could see each other. And, there are a couple of reasons for that. One, as a writer, I don't like to be predictable. I knew that most of my readers would assume that that's what I would do, so that's exactly what I didn't want to do. My editor and I did go back and forth about, whether she should come around, and I really decided that I'd rather she not. And the reason for that is that sometimes you run into people who just aren't kind. And that really doesn't have a whole lot to do with you. It has more to do with them. And I wanted to show the changes in the other characters in reference to Shay. So, think back to the beginning of the book. Didn't Shay have so much power? Didn't her words have so much power? When she said something to Oliver, didn't he slump in a chair and just feel horribly about himself? Toward the end of the book, now we see him going from desk to desk saying, spell image and then say light bulb. And then everybody's saying IMAGE light bulb. And he's leaping into the air and he's laughing. And then, when he does that with Shay, she says something unkind, and he doesn't slump into a chair. He just bounces on to the next desk. I wanted to show that the other characters became less and less concerned with Shay's unkind comments. Because the thing is you're always gonna find that. Unfortunately, you're always gonna find people who might have something to say that isn't that nice, and you need to be able to shake it off and realize that just because somebody says something doesn't make it true. Hang out with the people that make you feel good. Hang out with the people that elevate you, that buoy you, that make you feel good. So that was, you know, the deal with Shay. And the bracelets, the pile of friendship bracelets, you know, I've gotten a lot of questions from you guys as to why I did that. Well, I'm guessing that a lot of you have heard the term show, don't tell from your teachers. And that when you're writing, it's better to show something rather than to tell everybody. So I thought it was more powerful to put in these friendship bracelets and then have them end up in a pile on her desk at the end, rather than just having a line or two about, you know, everybody in the class has decided that maybe Shay is not the best friend after all, and that they shouldn't be paying for these bracelets, and they shouldn't be wearing bracelets that they've paid for, and that they don't really feel that she's a good friend. So it's better to show that by leaving the pile of bracelets rather than to just say that. Plus, I was hoping for you guys, you know, when you were reading, that it might be a little gasp moment, like it might be a little surprise. When I wrote it, I was surprised, and I have to admit, pretty happy that I stumbled upon that, because I did like that idea. All right, Albert with the boys at the end. Now, I don't know how you guys feel about that. You know, as a writer, we have our characters do things not because we would necessarily do that, but because that's what the character would do. And remember how I told you that when I dropped into Travis in the doorway, I could feel like how hopeless he felt, and it really like brought emotion up inside of me. That scene with Albert was the same thing. Okay, when I dropped into Albert, and, you know, in my mind, I'm watching these friends that I really, really care about be hurt. There was no other choice for Albert, you know, and in terms of character development, there was no choice for him, because he tries to figure everything out with facts. And there he was saying, well, my father says that you never use violence, but he's also said that you never hit a girl, so then what do I do? And he's weighing those two things. Albert had to defend himself. He had to defend his friends. I mean, it was time. It was time that he stood up for himself. And I hope that that most of you agree. I do feel that if you let people mistreat you like that, that you kind of give them permission. You have to take action, whether it's, you know, what Albert did, or going to tell a teacher, or whatever. However it is you handle that, you don't deserve to just take that. You know, you have to do something about it. And I think that, you know, you feel better in the end by doing that. But I do like that chapter with Albert, and being inside his skin like that, I knew that that's how he would handle it. When I got to the point where Allie says, you know, he looks me, you know, straight in the eye, and she's affected by the expression on his face, like I could feel all of that. Writing is it's really cool. It's really cool. I love it when I'm writing and stuff happens I don't expect. And that happens a lot to me, actually. It happens a real lot. All right, let's see. The Tales of a Fourth Grade Nothing. Now, you guys have heard in an earlier video that this is the actual book that my 6th grade teacher handed to me, and that Fish in a Tree is a big thank you letter to Mr. Christie, the teacher who basically saved me. So I do describe the cover earlier as having some kids with a goldfish on the cover, but I decided that I would use the actual book. Now here's the interesting thing. The whole reason, though, that all of this was in there is because of Travis. Now you're probably wondering, well, how could that be? Like, Travis isn't in that chapter. Okay, so when an author is trying to think of an ending, you know, you want to tie everything together. And it would have made sense for me to have Allie and Albert and Keisha be the end of the book. That would have made sense because they've all gone on this journey together. But, you know, like in my gut, my heart, and my soul, the first thing I knew about Allie is that she loves her brother, and I knew very quickly after that he struggles as well, and that he had dyslexia, and I really felt strongly that the book had to end with Travis and Allie. Now, in order to do that, I had to bring Travis into the school, because if I had, you know, Mr. Daniels just happened to come by the house and knock on the door and come in and talk to them. That did not feel authentic. That doesn't feel like something that would really happen. He had to be in the school. Well, he hasn't been in the school the entire month or the entire book. So does it make sense that today he would just happen to be there? So that's the whole reason why she had that project. That's the entire reason, just to put him in that school. So when I wrote that scene, I gave her that project, and then I flipped back through my other chapters and added the scene where she brings the project to school, and she has that conversation with Max about her dad being captain in a tank division and stuff. Like, all that was added just so the ending would work, because I felt very strongly that it had to end with him. You know, that's the thing about an ending. You know, you can have a really good ending, but you have to look at all the pieces of your ending and make sure that you have prepared for every piece of that ending. For example, it was important that the reader really knew how much that brother and sister adored each other. So I did add scenes. You know, all those scenes with Travis did not come out in the first draft. They came later. The more I felt strongly that the book had to end with Travis, the more I realized that I had to have scenes to show the reader who Travis truly is. Not only that he loves Allie, but who he truly is, and so that the reader would care about him as well. So I do. I love Travis. I've told you I love Travis. And I love Oliver. I've told you I love Oliver. I'm going to write another book someday. I'm going to put Oliver in there and give him a bigger part. I love Oliver. I've told you that. And actually, some of you have asked me, why do I love Oliver? I don't know. I love Oliver's energy and enthusiasm. You know, he's got a heart of gold, you know, saving the ant and, you know, making cards for his sister. He's just a really sweet kid. And I've known a lot of kids that I really adore who had a lot of trouble sitting still, whether they're in my classroom or my family or whatever. And, you know, they grew up to be world changers. You know, they can't sit still. Their minds are busy. That's a good thing. I'd rather have a busy mind than a mind that was kind of, you know, a couch potato. So I think that's a good thing. I think that's a good thing. All right, so the quote, it takes courage to ask for help in the book, is Carly Connor's quote. So some of you wrote me and said, wait a second, is this Carly Connors from your first book? Indeed it is. And since it's only my second book, and I'm early in my career, I've decided that every single book I write will have some sort of clue or connection to the previous book. So I've already put that in book number 3, where there is a clue or a connection to Fish in a Tree. So you guys will have to look for that. If you choose to read that book, you guys will have to look for that. The handing, when Allie hands the piece of paper, also to Travis. That was originally the end of the book. In an early draft, when I knew I wanted it to end with him, but I didn't know how exactly, that actually was the last line, was she hands him the piece of paper and says, I would like Travis to learn to read too. But it was an idea, but it wasn't powerful enough. I didn't think it was powerful enough. And it needed to end with Allie's thoughts about herself. So things will be different now. It's like birds can swim and fish can fly. Impossible to possible is her coming back and focusing on herself. Since the book is in first person, it does make sense to end with that. So, last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to read you the Dear Readers letter that I wrote at the end of the book. And how this came to be is when my publisher the book was going to print, they told me that there were some extra pages at the end, and would I please write like an extended bio. And see, this is the way it is with my writing. Like, I can't follow an outline or directions like that. And when I actually, I mean, if I really needed to write a bio, I could write a bio. But I was thinking more of my readers. I was thinking of you guys. And I didn't know if you'd really care that much about where I was born and such. So it just came out as a letter, Dear Readers. And once I typed those 2 words, Dear Readers, the rest of it just came out. So I'm going to read the Dear Readers letter. It's just as important as the story, I think. Dear readers, like so many other adults, I started out as a kid. I was typical in a lot of ways, being a girl whose companions were often her older brothers or a neighborhood full of boys. I became good at climbing trees, skateboarding, and baseball. On a skateboard or holding a bat at the plate at the bottom of the ninth, I was confident. I felt like I could handle and even excel at what I was doing. But sitting at a school desk was often a different experience. I remember sitting back and scanning the other kids in class, wondering why I couldn't be more like them. How were they able to do their work so quickly? And by the time I was Allie Nickerson's age, I remember sitting at our dining room table staring at my brother's high school textbooks and wondering how I would ever get through. Like Allie, I wondered what would become of me. Then, as a sixth grader, I was placed in Mr. Christie's class, who would later serve as my model for Mr. Daniels. Little did I know that he would change the path of my life. Why? Because he changed my perception, how I viewed myself, and that was very powerful. My perception was that other kids were just better. I learned later that they weren't. Being better at taking tests didn't make them better. It just made them better test takers. But at first, I let those negative thoughts seep in. I began to assume that I wouldn't be good at things, so I went through a time when I didn't try as hard as I could, because I just figured it didn't matter. However, Mr. Christie had confidence in me. He had me tutor younger kids. He hand-picked books for me to read and helped me move out of the lowest reading group. He smiled when I walked into the room. After a while, I began to mirror his confidence in me and left his class ready to set the world on fire. We all have both our special talents and areas where we need to work a bit harder. And honestly, I've learned much more from and have been ultimately successful because of my failures. Things will not always be easy. Sometimes we do fail. But it isn't failing that makes you a failure. It's staying down that does. The ability to stand up, brush yourself off, and try again is a huge strength. It's something that will take you very far in life, very far indeed. If you develop a habit of standing up and trying again, just imagine the phenomenal things that can be in store for you. Thank you for picking up Fish in a Tree. I do hope you have enjoyed meeting Allie, Keisha, Albert, Mr. Daniels, and the others. And remember, great minds don't think alike. Take care, Lynda. So that's the end of the book. That's it, you guys. I'm kind of sad. But if you have a chance to go back and read that letter at the end, especially if you are the kind of kid who struggles in school, or would like to do better in school, I would like you to go back and read that quietly sometime when you have the time. Because, you know, the thing is a lot of people are afraid of failure. A lot of people your age are afraid of failure. A lot of people my age are afraid of failure, and it keeps them from trying new things. Failure is actually a really awesome thing, because nobody has succeeded without failing. I am here, author of Fish in a Tree, a published author now, which I still pinch myself. I still can't believe that. But listen, I failed over and over and over and over again. I have failed a lot more in my life than I have succeeded. But the thing is failure didn't bother me that much. I guess maybe I got used to it. But I wasn't afraid of failure. I really wasn't. And you shouldn't be either. You know, I would say that if you are succeeding at everything, then I would say that you should ask yourself, are you really challenging yourself? Are you really pushing yourself if everything you try, you succeed at? Failure is a badge of courage. It means that you are trying things that are difficult. Failure is not a bad thing. Failure is like a step, a step on another step towards success. And, I would say the kids out there that play video games. What about, when your character dies on a level, do you just throw up your hands and say, turn to your friend and say, oh, well, we died, I guess we better do something else? No, I've watched kids play video games. They try again, and they try again and again and again and again. So then get to level 7 and then get to level 12. It is no different. It's no different if you're trying at baseball or writing books or painting pictures or ballet or whatever it is that you are excited about. Do not be afraid of failure. I promise you, failure is the way to success. So, listen, Fantasticos. I'm actually really kind of getting a little misty here, saying so long to you guys. I really do appreciate your reading my book. And I really do appreciate all the wonderful notes and messages that I've been getting, and I hope those keep coming. I really do thank you for giving me a silver dollar 6 weeks, which of course is way better than a day, and I wish you the same. I wish you many, many silver dollar days in the future, and hopefully one day our paths will cross for real. Okay, so I'm drawing this out, you guys, because I don't want to go, but I think it's time. So thank you again. You guys are the best. And one more thing. You thank your teachers. I said that in the first video, but you thank your teachers. This takes a lot of planning to do. If you're connecting with other classes, you're watching these videos, your teacher's been reading to you, that takes planning, and it means they care. They care about you. So be sure that you thank them for me. All right, everybody, take care. I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.